For 28 years, the world believed that Sister Grace and her 4 sisters vanished forever on a stormy September night in 1979. Some said we were dead. Some believed we ran away with men. But the truth is more horrifying than anyone could ever imagine. I am Grace. I am 70 years old. And today, for the first time after nearly 3 decades of living in the shadows, I will reveal the real reason why 5 young women had to climb over the convent walls in the dead of night and disappear from their old lives forever. This is not a story of shaken faith. This is a story of the devil hidden behind a holy cloth, of dark secrets concealed by sacred walls, of 5 women who paid with their lives to escape hell. If you are listening from anywhere in the world, please leave a comment and subscribe, because there are truths that need to be spread no matter how they may shake what you believe. There are stories, however painful, that must be told. And this story will change the way you look at faith, at power, and at the price of truth. Prepare yourselves, because what I am about to reveal has been buried for far too long. Since I was a child, I was always a reserved person, preferring to observe rather than speak. My mother used to say I had a keen insight, able to see beyond the obvious. Perhaps that's why I was the only one who noticed the dark events unfolding in that convent, the only watchful eye that noticed the shadow casting itself behind the angelic smiles and daily prayers. I entered the convent at 16, of my own free will, moved by a desire to serve God in body and soul. In the early years, I found exactly what I was looking for. The convent routine provided me with comfort and security, giving every moment of the day a purpose and a connection to something transcendent. The other sisters became my family, united by the same faith. There were only 5 of us nuns in that convent, led by our Mother Superior, Mother Agnes, a strict but fair woman. Havenwood was a small town where everyone knew each other. The convent, situated high on a hill, played a vital role in the community. It was in this context that I met Father Michael, who arrived at the parish when I was in my 5th year of religious life. He was a tall, imposing man with a voice that resonated with authority at the altar. At first, everyone admired him, but soon I began to notice unsettling subtleties, prolonged glances, questions during confession that overstepped the bounds of what was necessary, touches on the shoulder that lingered longer than acceptable, small gestures that added up revealed a disturbing pattern. I realized I wasn't the only one who felt uncomfortable. Sister Sarah, a young woman of only 19, also began to avoid being alone with him. The atmosphere in the convent changed, and joy gradually gave way to an oppressive silence laden with secrets and omissions. Mother Agnes fell ill around that time, a victim of severe pneumonia that kept her bedridden for weeks. Without her protective presence, the convent became vulnerable. And it was precisely during this period that the shadow I had been sensing transformed into something much more sinister and terrifying. Father Michael began to visit the convent more frequently, using his authority to put us in uncomfortable situations. I clearly remember the first time I witnessed something truly serious. I saw Sister Sarah cornered between the bookshelf and Father Michael in the library. He was holding her wrist tightly while her face reflected fear and shame. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. Thousands of thoughts swirled in my mind. Deep down, I knew something profoundly wrong was happening. Something that went against all the principles that had motivated me to choose this life. I tried to talk to Sister Eleanor, desperate for an ally. At first, her response was silence, a wall built of shock and fear that I understood all too well. For days, she seemed paralyzed by the horror of it all. However, as the initial shock subsided, her sharp, methodical mind began to take over. The silence gave way to quiet, pointed questions. She started connecting details I had missed, and it was she, not I, who finally broke the stillness one evening by whispering the one word that could save us: proof. The discoveries I made shook me to my core, generating horror and indignation. The situation was not an isolated event, but a systematic practice. Coldly planned and executed with cruelty. Faced with this, I understood that it was imperative to act as true faith does not submit to injustice. Genuine faith compels you to confront evil even when it presents itself under a mask of holiness. However, I did not imagine that this resolution would radically transform the course of my existence, leading to a disappearance that would last 28 years. I would be forced to give up everything familiar and dear to me, undergoing an irreversible metamorphosis. The St. Mary of Peace convent was like a bucolic painting with its grey stone walls, its narrow windows, a meticulously cared for garden, and a small chapel that became even more charming in the early morning hours when fog settled over the town, creating the illusion of being closer to heaven. Our routine was simple and methodical. We would wake up at 5 a.m., pray together, and then each of us would dedicate ourselves to our responsibilities. My main duty was to care for the vegetable garden in addition to helping in the kitchen. The contact with the damp earth provided me with a sense of deep connection with the divine. Sister Martha, with her 65 years of experience, was in charge of the kitchen. Her loaves of bread were a delight with a crispy crust and an incredibly soft crumb. Production intensified on Wednesdays and Saturdays to be distributed among needy families. She used to say, "We feed the body to nourish the soul." Sister Eleanor was our intellectual. She dedicated hours to reading religious texts in the library. She had an admirable memory with an impressive ability to quote passages from the Bible. She always repeated, "Knowledge is a form of prayer." Sister Joy radiated happiness. She was dedicated to the children in the catechism classes who adored her. Her favorite phrase was, "A sad saint is a sorry saint," pronounced with a contagious laugh. Sister Sarah, the youngest among us, was still a novice, having arrived only 6 months prior to these dark events. Shy and gentle, we had bonded while working together in the garden, sharing a comforting silence. Shy like me, we worked together in the garden, sharing a comforting silence. Mother Agnes was our pillar, a firm and demanding figure, but with a generous heart. Her maxim was, "Discipline without love is tyranny, but love without discipline is indulgence." Our life was dedicated to service and prayer. In addition to our internal tasks, we provided help to the community. The convent was respected and recognized as a refuge of peace and kindness. It was in this atmosphere of simplicity that the shadow began to creep in. Father Thomas, our spiritual guide for many years, was transferred. He was a kind man who treated us almost like a grandfather. We were saddened by the news of his departure, but we understood the situation. Shortly after, Father Michael arrived. I clearly remember the first day I saw him at the altar. His presence dominated the space, and his voice resonated through the walls, strong and clear. Something about him caused me an inexplicable discomfort, but the other sisters seemed positively impressed. On his first visit to the convent, he brought gifts. A book for Sister Eleanor, a statue for the chapel, and seeds for our garden. During the first confession, his questions deviated from the usual and became more invasive. He showed interest in the details of my life before the convent and questioned my impure thoughts. His visits became increasingly frequent, always with some excuse. He needed to consult a book, had questions about medicinal herbs, or wanted to see if we needed anything. Every time he came, a somber atmosphere accompanied him. I began to observe patterns in his behavior, like the way he sought moments of privacy with the younger sisters, the intensity of his gaze, and the way he used his touch. His touches were seemingly casual, but they weren't. One day, Sister Sarah dropped a tool on the ground just as his voice was heard. Her hands were trembling so much that I had to help her. "What did he do to you?" I asked. Her only response was to cry while saying that he had threatened her, claiming that no one would believe her. I tried to talk to Mother Agnes, but she was outraged by my insinuations and told me to go pray and ask for forgiveness for my impure thoughts towards a priest. The situation worsened and he began to act more boldly, as if he were sure he wouldn't be reported. I was a witness to the suffering on my sisters' faces, especially Sarah's, who was wasting away with each passing day. The situation reached a critical point when Mother Agnes fell gravely ill. The priest announced that he would come daily to watch over our spiritual well-being. It was then that his mask of sanctity fell completely. One night, I found Sarah huddled in the hallway, her habit disheveled and a reddish mark on her cheek. He said, "No one will believe me," she murmured, adding that he called her a simple, insignificant nun while presenting himself as a representative of God. That night, I understood that we were completely alone, that no one would come to save us, and that we would have to find a way to escape that nightmare ourselves. The walls that were supposed to protect us now imprisoned us along with our torment. And the man who was supposed to be our spiritual guide had revealed himself to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. It was imperative to do something. And I, the silent observer, would have to take the initiative. Have you ever felt that fear that paralyzes the soul? That makes your heart beat so hard it feels like it's going to break your ribs. I felt it constantly in that convent. After Mother Agnes's illness, Father Michael proved to be cunning, knowing how to behave, so as not to arouse suspicion in front of several people. He appeared proper, but when he managed to isolate one of us, his inner demon manifested. I began to realize that he created situations on purpose, sending separate messages to each sister. "Sister Sarah, I need to discuss an important matter with you in the sacristy. Sister Grace, come to the library after prayers." Poor Sarah was the one who suffered the most. Very young, having just taken her final vows, she was too shy to defend herself. I witnessed on several occasions how he pressed her against the wall, how he spoke too close to her face, how his hands accidentally touched parts of the body that no man should touch. One night, I found Sarah huddled in the pantry, trembling and adjusting her habit. "He says he's my spiritual guide," she whispered, adding that she must obey him and that if she told anyone, she would go to hell. My blood boiled and for the first time I felt true hatred. I hugged Sarah and promised to protect her. But how? Who would believe the word of two nuns against a respected priest? I tried to talk to Sister Eleanor. "We have to do something," I said. Eleanor sighed and asked what I suggested, saying that no one would believe us, as a priest's word was worth more than ours. "But what about Mother Agnes? She has to know. The mother is very ill, and even if we had the chance, she would side with a priest against the church. The situation deteriorated further when Sister Joy also became a target of his attacks. Before, always so cheerful, she began to become quiet, lose her appetite, and her eyes were now constantly red from crying so much. One afternoon, she finally broke down in sobs, telling me that Father Michael had called her for special spiritual guidance and began to interrogate her about her chastity. The moment I tried to leave, she recounted. He grabbed my arm with such force that he left a bruise. Something inside me broke. Seeing Joy, once so strong, reduced to that state, it was as if he were annihilating her very essence. I started to pay more attention and make plans to protect the sisters. I tried to make sure none of them were ever left alone with him, inventing tasks that had to be done in a group. However, he noticed my actions and began to isolate me, spreading information among the older sisters that I was showing problems with obedience. Sister Martha began to watch me with suspicion. Father Michael asked me, "Grace, is it true that you have shown rebellion?" My desire was to scream the truth, but I was aware it would be useless. She would never believe me over him. It was then that I understood that words would be insufficient and that I needed proof. I began to observe and meticulously record every detail, dates, times, his words, and his actions. One night he crossed all boundaries. Sarah came to my room trembling so much she could barely stand. Her face had finger marks and her habit was torn at the shoulder. He tried. She whispered in the confessional. He said it was a penance that I had to give myself to him to be purified of my sins. The anger I felt was unlike any other emotion I had ever experienced. "This ends today," I declared. The next morning, under the pretext of needing to purchase special supplies for the infirmary, a task sometimes assigned to me, I was granted permission to go into town. Instead of heading to the market, I went straight to the office of the regional bishop. I waited for 3 hours until they received me. When I finally went in, I felt my courage waver, but thinking of Sarah and Joy, I found strength. I recounted everything, presented my notes, described the incidents, and explained how Father Michael used his authority to intimidate us. The bishop listened attentively in silence, and when I finished, he sighed. "Sister Grace, these are extremely serious accusations. Father Michael is an exemplary priest. Are you sure?" My heart sank. Despite all the evidence, doubt still lingered. "I am absolutely sure," I replied firmly. "I fear for the well-being of my sisters as long as he continues to have access to the convent. I will investigate the case, but I urge you to maintain absolute discretion. A scandal of this magnitude could seriously damage the image of the Church." I left with a mixture of hope and apprehension. I had done everything in my power within the system. 2 nights later, Father Michael showed up at the convent outside of his usual hours. His face contorted with fury. He remained locked in a room with Sister Eleanor for almost an hour. When he came out, Eleanor looked devastated while the priest wore a triumphant smile. As he passed me, he whispered, "God punishes those who lie about his servants." The bishop told me everything. I was in shock. The bishop had revealed everything, including who had filed the complaint. Eleanor came to my room. "What have you done, Grace? You went to the bishop behind our backs." I tried to justify myself, but she shook her head, showing her disappointment. "Father Michael claims you have psychological problems, that you're making up stories. The bishop believed him and now demands that you be transferred or expelled. Reality hit me full force. Not only had they believed him instead of me, but now I was being punished for trying to protect my sisters. It's not fair, I murmured. He's hurting you. Eleanor sat on my bed, dejected. Life isn't always fair, Grace, especially for women like us. The next morning, I was called to the office. Father Michael was already there. With delight, he read the bishop's order aloud, savoring every word of my immediate transfer to a remote convent in rural Montana for insubordination and defamation against a man of God. In that instant, I understood that justice was unattainable for us within that structure. It was then that I made a decision that would transform my existence forever. I would not go to Montana. I would find an alternative, even if it meant disappearing. We are going to leave, I declared to my united companions, to flee. The mere mention of that word echoed ceaselessly in my mind, day and night. I never imagined that one day I would be planning an escape from a convent, the place I had chosen as my home. Yet there we were, 5 frightened nuns whispering in the cellar, surrounded by crates of potatoes and canned goods. Sister Eleanor, always thoughtful, expressed her hesitation. If we run, we'll look guilty. They'll say we have something to hide. And we do, replied Joy bitterly. We have to hide our shame, our humiliation, the fact that the church has abandoned us. Sister Sarah just sobbed quietly, hugging her knees. Sister Martha, the eldest, remained silent for a long time. 60 years, she said finally. For 60 years, I have served God within these walls. I thought I would find peace in death here. However, now I realize that sometimes God demands sacrifices we do not understand. If it is necessary to leave to protect my sisters, then His will be done. Her words solidified our decision, we would flee together. But how could 5 women with no financial resources, no contacts, and no direction accomplish such a feat? The convent wall was imposing, adorned with shards of glass at the top. The gate was heavy and noisy, and even if we managed to get through it, where would we go? We needed outside help, someone we could trust. I prayed as never before, not reciting memorized prayers, but expressing the deepest feelings of my soul. Lord, if we are doing your will, send us a sign. And He sent it in the most unexpected way. Mr. Miller, the supplier who delivered vegetables to the convent, a simple man of few words and calloused hands, who lived alone on a small farm on the outskirts of town. That day, as I helped him unload the crates, he looked at me differently. You don't look well, Sister Grace, he commented in a low voice. I was surprised because Mr. Miller rarely said anything more than what was strictly necessary. I'm fine, I replied with a forced smile. Just a little tired, he continued to watch me. Forgive my prying, but my late lords used to say I had a gift for sensing when people are troubled. If you or the other sisters need help, you can count on me. My heart sped up. Was this the sign I had been waiting for or a trap? What makes you think we need help? I asked cautiously, he sighed. My eldest daughter joined a convent up north. She also had problems with a priest. His eyes darkened. By the time she was finally able to tell me what had happened, it was too late. I felt an immediate connection with this man who carried his own pain. You're right, I confessed. We need help. A lot of help. In the following days, Mr. Miller became our ally. We exchanged information discreetly through notes hidden among the vegetables. In one of his notes, he told me about a section of the rear wall where the stones were crumbling and a large oak tree grew close, its thick branches extending over the top. "No glass there," he wrote. "The branches will give you cover and something to hold on to. I will leave an old rope ladder hidden in the bushes nearby." It was our only viable path. A plan began to take shape. Mr. Miller had a cousin in the mountains of North Carolina who owned a small inn. The cousin agreed to take us in temporarily. Mr. Ford of Ludoff.orgs. Miller would use his savings to finance our journey and the initial period of adjustment. "I can't stand by and watch you go through what happened to my Rosie," he declared with teary eyes. The plan was simple, though full of risks. We would escape on a night of torrential rain. Mr. Miller would wait with his pickup truck in a secluded spot on the road. We would have to climb the wall at the back where the trees provided natural cover.